What is happening, everybody? I finally think I've started to work out, get a bit better at flicking between pausing the music and hitting the camera feed. Good evening, everyone. And this one's interesting. I'm really excited to hear about Shaun's story with his awesome. I mean, if you guys do smoke cigars, obviously head over and check out his Instagram, and all the links to the bios to his website are in the bio. For those of you that obviously are interested to check it out straight away, in the UK it's www.cigars.co.uk, and check out his awesome brand. Just before I introduce him, I just want to do a quick shout out to my sponsors. First off, Cold Skull Coffee. Got that one better. The other night I fucking had a brain freeze on that one. So again, head over, check out Cold Skull Coffee. If you like me, you like strong coffee. I know I always say it, but Cold blend, it's like rocket fuel. So that's Cold Skull Coffee. That's www.coldskullcoffee.com. And also Silverback Cuts. If you're into custom made leather waistcoats, custom biker style jewelry, fitness gear, if you're into your training, and Lucas will make you pretty much anything custom made, leather orientated with a jacket. Even like I say, just check it out. That's silverbackcuts.com as well. And the newest one, which I introduced on the last podcast, is Dethrone Clothing. Jamie is obviously massively in the tattoo culture, and all of his designs are based around tattoo designs. Yeah, really, really cool guy. I was lucky enough to interview him season 1 of the podcast. And I'm going to stop waffling on, and I'm going to introduce Shaun, because this one is going to be a good one. And let me, again, I'm trying to multitask here. It's shit. Looks like I know what I'm doing, if I'm being honest, but we'll give it a go. Good evening, Shaun.
How are we doing?
Good afternoon for you, because you're over in Florida right now. Is that right?
Over in Florida at the moment, yeah. Hence the reason I've got
that
a nice t-shirt
awesome.
on.
So
it's lovely and warm.
We've actually, to be fair, mate, we've actually had about 12, 15 degrees but sunshine, which is a rare thing. It is, but it's nice. It's nice to have a bit of sun. So introduce yourself, mate.
Right, well, my name is Shaun Wilkinson, and myself and my wife Mandy run a business called Rebellion Cigars, and we have a website, a retail website in the UK, rebellioncigars.co.uk, and we also sell our cigars all over the world through various distributors in various countries. So that's me in a nutshell.
That is awesome. I mean, obviously, I suppose we kind of need to go back to where it all started with cigars before we kind of get to the brand, or just was it a business decision? Because I can't imagine this type of business just being like in it just to make a bit of money, because I can imagine it's quite a tricky, like, years old type of things. It's like secrets. I mean, I was reading in your reading on your web bit of the backstory, and I can imagine that if you're just in it for a bit of money, it's not going to do too well.
No, we're not in it for the money. There's many reasons. I mean, if I go back to the beginning, I mean, I know I don't look it, but I'm 57 now, and I started smoking cigars 40 years ago. And you won't remember this because you're much younger than me, but back in the day, there was a cigar that they used to advertise on the TV called a Hamlet cigar, and it was known as the cigar that was as big as a pint pot. And I got hooked by the advertising. I'd never smoked cigarettes. I thought, well, that's a cool thing to do. So I started smoking those. And again, in those days, most Friday, Saturday nights, we'd be in the working men's club. My wife used to sing in them, and I'd be sat in the corner smoking a cigar, thinking I looked the dog's bollocks and probably looks a right twat, but that was cool. And then somebody went to the Dominican Republic and bought me some proper cigars back, and I thought, well, these are good. And I tried to smoke one. I thought, well, you don't really get any smoke out of them, so I must be doing something wrong. So I hopped in my car, went to the local tobacconist, and I said, right, I've got these cigars. I said, but they don't smoke very well. He said, well, show me what you're doing. So I did. He said, right, the first thing you need to do is you need to cut the end off. Okay. Now, I didn't know you had to do that with a cigar. So cut the end off, and all of a sudden, it's a proper cigar. And I've never really looked back. The problem in the UK is that cigars are very expensive. They were also quite exclusive. And back in those days, it was predominantly Cuban cigars. So I thought, right, how can I afford to smoke more cigars for less money? And I thought, I'll set up a website selling cigars, because then at least I can buy them at trade price and do that sort of stuff. But nobody would let me do it. Nobody would supply me. So I shelved that idea. And then about 6 years ago, the idea had never gone, but about 6 years ago, I was with some mates in Malta, actually, and we all fancied a cigar. And it's like, fucking hell, they're expensive. There must be a better way of doing this. We'd had some wine and beer and whiskey and all that sort of stuff, and we started kicking this whole idea around. And I came back to the UK, and Rebellion Cigars was born.
So obviously, it's kind of like listening to your story. It's really cool, really. So far, it's like you got hooked on cigars for like the same reason why I'm guessing that most people do. It's because there's that, whether it be that you're into like the gentleman vibe, or whether it be like the Al Capone vibe. There's almost like that. When I said like off air, it's like that, almost like that, like this whole how cool it is, like. And then, it's like the same reason for me. I think I just think there's something really cool about it. I just think that whole, like saying, like even simply sharing photos on the storyline of someone with a cigar or on an ashtray, on a poker table. I just think there's something just so picturesque about it and women, but obviously there's something manly about it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'm slightly biased, but I think it's cool. But actually for me, right, the big thing for me is it's my relaxation. So you mentioned earlier you like your strong coffee. Everybody's got something. And, if I've had a crap day, there's nothing better than just getting an hour to myself with a cigar on the go and chilling out and kicking back. And that for me is what it's all about. That's the primary thing. And that's one of the reasons we set the business up, because there's a lot of other people like that who just want to have an hour to themselves on a weekend or at night or whatever, and they want to smoke a good cigar, look cool, but not break the bank doing it. And that's one of the other reasons why we set the business up. So how did you, obviously, like you say, you got back to the UK and all of a sudden you were like, right. So first off, name Rebellion Cigars come from? What's the story behind that? Because it's a cool name. Thank you. Well, it was about rebelling against the cigar smoking norm as I saw it in the UK. So I've been lucky enough to come to America, and it's a whole different vibe over here. Big cigar lounges, wear what you want, do what you want, all that sort of stuff. And I thought cigar smoking in the UK was a bit elitist and a bit stuffy. And I didn't, look, if you want to wear a Panama hat and a suit to smoke a cigar, you go ahead. That's part of the thing. You do whatever it is you want to do. But for me, I work for a living, right? And I wanted to do something that allowed the normal man or woman in the street to be able to afford to smoke cigars. And so Rebellion was a bit of a kick in the arse to all those people who said, you can't do this, you're not one of us, mate, you can't get into this business. Well, yes I can, and here we are.
Yeah, that's cool, because that's kind of like my story. So I've had quite a few people ask me, well, some people assume that 666 Customs is like a satanic, and it's like, it actually isn't. Like 666 Customs to me was like, it's like rebelling against like rebelling society, like kind of like putting it up to the government type of thing. Yeah. And like, like just be literally very similar to you, like just kind of being that, because at the end of the day, and the typical person would assume that by being a bit of a rebel, like you're this outlaw, run with no morals, no dignity, you know, no none of the good stuff. And it's like, that's not the case. That's not the case. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can stand for what you believe in.
Well, that's it, and it's about not being judged by what you look like or what you wear. It's about what you do, and I think that's way better now. You know, 10 years ago there was still a lot of stigma. You know, if you came on looking like, you know, with a big beard and everything, people are going to think, oh, he's got a big beard. That's not quite right. Well, that's the norm now. But who gives a shit? You know, if you've got no hair, long hair, nobody should care what you look like or what you do. Just enjoy life, and that was again part of the rebellious thing.
That's cool. That's cool. So like you say, so you decided that you were going to set this company up, and then did you know? Obviously, I'm guessing it wasn't an easy. You know how tricky it was going to be when you sat. Obviously, I know you tried 6 years prior, and then so you decided you were going to do it again.
I thought I'd do this for a bit of an easier life, but I couldn't have been further from the truth. So, so in the UK, you know, the market is pretty much controlled by some wholesalers and there are small retailers around. So you've got to fight for your corner, and that means you've got to get your fists up sometimes and actually fight for your corner. And when we first launched the site, you know, a couple of people tried to get us closed down because we were selling cigars cheaper than everybody else, and they didn't like it. We were ruining their market. But I go back to the whole point of why we did it, which was to try and bring good cigars into the country at the right price. So we don't just sell our cigars; we sell lots of other people's cigars as well. But the biggest headache we had was actually getting the cigars in country, trying to work out how to navigate the HMRC customs and the duty and all the other stuff. And eventually, after we've done it 3 or 4 times, we've got it down to a finely oiled machine now, and we can do it really easily. But that was a nightmare. Our second shipment in got seized by customs. So we're a new business, small business, and all of a sudden I've got 5,000 quid's worth of cigars sat in customs. I get a letter from HMRC saying, we've seized your goods because you haven't done the paperwork right. Please email this email address or phone this number. Now, if you email the email address, it bounces straight back. And if you phone the number, it's disconnected. So I'm thinking, well, what the fuck do we do now? And it took about 3 or 4 weeks of phoning and doing everything we could before we could eventually talk to somebody and they actually said, oh yeah, we see the paperwork's right, we've messed up, and eventually they got it released. But you know, that could have killed us. And it's stuff like that I'm rebelling against as well.
So what is it you think that, like, why do you think that your competitors, is it because it's just such a well-established, like, old-fashioned business, and all of a sudden, like, they did only, obviously, not only but you think they didn't like this newbie coming in?
Well, they didn't like people. They didn't want somebody coming in and undercutting all their nice lucrative margins. So there's no doubt in the UK cigars are expensive because of the amount of duty you have to pay to get them in, right? That is clear. But for me, the margins that the wholesalers and the retailers were making is way too much. I mean, it's astronomical. And now we know the industry. We know that it's astronomical. They've got businesses to run, but they're very, very profitable, well-run businesses. So there's always room for somebody to come in and disrupt it a little bit and say, actually, we're going to do it differently. And if the consumer likes it, which is all that matters, you'll succeed. If the consumer doesn't like it, you won't. And that's what you base your business on. And luckily for us, the consumers in the UK seem to like what we're doing. You know, we turn over in the UK about £180,000 a year now, but at a much lower margin than everybody else, because that's what we're trying to do. You know, we get a lot of sticks out there at low margin. People are smoking them and having a nice time, and I think we've succeeded in what we set out to do originally, which was get good cigars in at a good price.
So, like, with when it obviously comes to, because obviously you've got your own. Not only do you sell other brands of cigars, but you obviously made your own blends and that. What was you aiming for with your own blends? Was it like a strong hit? Was it like a, I know you've got obviously different blends, but like, what was the idea behind them?
Well, anybody who's in business, the first thing you do is make something you like. So the very first cigar we got blended was called the Sweet Child of Mine, and I'll come to why it was called that in a minute. But it was called the Sweet Child of Mine, and I'd smoked about 20 different blends over the summer of 2020, and this one just kept coming back as the good blend. So that was the first cigar we ever launched. And then you got to think, right, okay, as my wife will say all the time, it's not all about me. So then you've got to create other blends, because as you like, strong coffee, that's great, and I like a slightly stronger cigar, but there's lots of people who like a milder cigar or a medium cigar. So you've got to try and cater to those markets, otherwise you're too narrow in the cigar business. So this really comes about how the brand came about as well, because you'll see I'm wearing a pink t-shirt, right, and the whole brand is pink. And when we were setting this up, we're thinking, okay, how are we going to stand out from this crowded market? And particularly when you come over to the States and you go into some of these smoke lounges, and they will have, 500 different cigars on the shelf. But it's a sea of brown and blacks, because most people are putting their cigars in a brown box, a black box, very little color, and the cigars are brown. Yeah. So all of a sudden you stick a pink box on there, or a pink label or a pink band, and it stands out. And it's going to draw your eye. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you've got to have a good cigar, because if you tempt the consumer to part with their money because it's pink, but the cigar's no good, well then again you failed. So the cigar needs to be good, and therefore it's worth us paying a bit more to make sure we get really good tobacco in the cigars. And again, this comes down to profit margins and everything else, but making sure you've got good cigars. I mean, the cigar, my favorite cigar is called the Ace of Spades, and that has a dark Maduro wrapper. Okay, and again, sourcing those in Honduras, where we get our cigars made, is quite difficult. So we're constantly buying them and storing them when they come on the market, so that we've got continuity of supply, months, if not years ahead now. That all takes money and takes investment, but you've got to kind of think of those things. But the other thing that we kind of did, which was very different, is we named all our cigars after songs. So we have two core lines in the Rebellion range. The first one is the Rockstar range. So you've got Paradise City, you've got the You Shook Me All Night Long, which is what I'm smoking now, Ace of Spades and Sweet Child of Mine, all my favorite rock songs. Mandy is into our country music, so then we've got the country range, which is 5 O'Clock Somewhere, Redneck Woman, and Ring of Fire. And they're all different blends, different wrappers, different taste profiles, and it now makes up in the UK about 30% of our total sales are our own brand of cigars. So that's gone from maybe 5% when we first started. Now it's really, really taken off, and every month it's growing big time.
Oh yeah. I mean, today, obviously, looking to see that you've managed to team up with, which is obviously, I mean, Eddie's such a character, isn't he? And that's great to see as well.
Yeah, that's that. The reason we're in the States at the moment is we're doing the big cigar exhibition called PCA, which starts in 3 days' time, and that's where we're launching the Eddie Hall Beast. There's a bit of a story how we got in with Eddie. Actually, I picked up a distributor in Estonia, and I went over there to do a launch at their store, and we did it over 2 nights. And there were 3 guys sat in the corner smoking the cigars, all very well dressed. And this guy came over to me and he said, "I know some people who smoke your cigars." I said, "Oh, do you?" And this guy makes bespoke suits, which is why he was very sharply dressed. He said, "A guy called Eddie Hall." And I'm thinking, who's Eddie Hall? He said, yeah, he buys your cigars. So next thing I know, there's all these text messages banging backwards and forwards. So cutting a very long story short, Eddie was in
Cool.
He was in the States. I, was talking to him over WhatsApp. He was doing the World's Strongest Man. He was commentating on it. And he said, he said, I love your cigars. He said, I'll tell you how I came to smoke them. I was in a cigar shop in the UK. He said, I used to smoke Romeo and Julieta White Churchill. He said, but the price of them, he said, it's gone through the roof. And I saw on the shelf this pink box full of cigars. And I thought, well, that's right up my street. That is that. He said, I'll give them a try. So he tried all the different ones. He settled on a particular blend that he really likes. He started buying them, loves them. So I said to him, well, what about, collaborating and putting something together? So it's your cigar. He was right up for that. And, 6 months later, well, actually, it took us about a year to get the whole thing done. But a year later, we're ready to launch it, his blend, his size of cigar. And, we're launching it in 3 days' time.
So what was Eddie looking for in a blend then? Obviously, did you have your certain, what was his?
So the first thing is the size of the cigar. So he's not a small cigar. He's a big lad. So he needed a fairly decent sized cigar. So we've gone with what we call a Gran Toro, which is a pretty hefty cigar. And he wanted something that was a medium smoke with, and again, I'm not going to give the blend away, but with the particular flavors he wanted to taste.
No.
So we made 4 or 5 different blends for him, and we settled on the one he liked the best, and that's now called the Eddie Hall Beast.
That's cool. I mean, like you say, because I think what's cool about Eddie is obviously not only what did he achieve, it's the way he seems to be somebody that cares about and he cares about the average Joe. And I think obviously that's obviously doing what he did in the power in the World's Strongest Man. He's kept himself very humble to real people, kind of like obviously matches up with really like what what your journey is with your cigar brand.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to his house, and on his driveway, he's got 2 tanks parked there, both of which are road legal, and he quite often goes and picks his kid up from school in a tank. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know, really. Yeah,
he's and he's into his bikes as well, and I've seen he's got himself a motor and does the odd track day and that as well with his dad. No, that's cool. So obviously. So for you, did you grow up around the rock and roll culture, or is it just something because I know obviously your music, you're into rock and roll, but with your labeling and that, it seems very almost similar to the bike, the biker culture.
I got into it late, so I was brought up really on 80s music, so your Duran Duran, just Spandau Ballads, that sort of thing. That was kind of my teenage years, and it wasn't until my mid-20s when I really discovered your AC/DCs, Queen, all those bands that were really, really big in the 70s, and they passed me by a little bit, and then I really got into it and never looked back. I just love the sound of a real rock guitar, real overdriven guitar. I have a guitar. I have a Gibson guitar. I have a very big amp. I can't play it, but I can make a loud noise, and it probably annoys the neighbours massively, but it gives me a huge amount of satisfaction just to rock out a little bit.
That's it, and I think it kind of goes with the whole the whole picture of cigar hanging out your mouth, guitar in your hands, whiskey on the side or whatever you're drinking, and it's just that whole environment of that moment that you're in. That's going back again to this whole cool idea of simply just sitting there with a cigar and enjoying the moment.
Well, I tell you what, so the number of people who send me things on Instagram or Facebook where particularly with the Ace of Spades cigar, they're smoking the cigar and they've got the music playing in the background, and that's their relaxation. So they've got a bit of rock on, nice guitar on the go, whatever drink they're drinking, and they're kicking back and chilling out for an hour.
Yeah. So I'm kind of interested to know, like when when you're obviously your cigars and that, like, are you having to travel to different parts of the world to actually like go to where the tobacco is grown, and are you having to do all that stuff as well? Or?
Well, no. So it's really important, and this was a mistake we made early on. You need the right partner, okay, to help you with this. And the first factory we partnered with did okay, but it didn't quite work out. And again, through lucky conversations with some people, we found this guy called Pedro who runs a cigar factory in Honduras in a place called Danley. Now, you've got obviously Cuba is your big cigar place for Cubans, obviously, but then you've really got Nicaragua really came to the fore, but Honduras is kind of the place to go now. So Honduras, maybe Costa Rica, but Honduras is the place to go. And if you go to Danley, it's a cigar town. I don't know the numbers, but maybe 40% of everybody lives there works in the cigar industry in some way, shape, or form. And Pedro has been in the cigar business all his life, from a kid almost. His dad owns a farm, and they grow their own tobacco, but they source other tobacco. So when we reblended our cigars, he flew over to Orlando to meet me here, and we sat on outside here all afternoon smoking cigars and messing about, and he was suggesting things that might make it a bit better or taste a bit different, or that sort of thing. And then you basically make a load of samples, 10 of each. And then you over a period of time, you smoke them, you go back to them, and you think, well, okay, that's maybe a bit sour, or that's not really got the taste profile. Then you find the one that really works. So, my favorite cigar is the Ace of Spades. And he's done such a great job with that. It's just, if I have 2 hours spare and I know I want to have a good time smoking a cigar, that is my go-to cigar. So that's me. I'm a happy man. But as I say, you need the right people. And I mean, he's a younger guy. He works, I don't know, 20 hours a day. I mean, he's a real grafter. And we're so pleased that we met him and we partnered with him, and he takes care of all the production and makes sure the quality control is right at the factory, handles all the shipping all over the world, and then we handle the logistics and the sales and marketing.
So do you think that like the requirements of the blend in the modern day of smoking cigars, do you think it's changed over the years, or is it kind of, I know obviously it's still fundamentally tobacco and and the processes, but changed the way and what people want?
Yes and no. So there's a big movement we've seen in the last probably 6 to 9 months to flavored cigars. They're not my bag. I don't like them, but lots of people do. And again, each to their own. So we're seeing, particularly in the UK now, a big uptake of flavored cigars, but I don't think the taste have changed that much. I mean, if you think about it, there are only so many types of tobacco can get grown, right? And we're the same. All the companies, the marketing people get on this, and they'll tell you it's 28-year aged tobacco out of my grandmother's barn that was sealed, all that bollocks, right? Ultimately, and I always say this, if you like my cigars, that's brilliant, all right? And if you don't, that's also brilliant. Just enjoy what you do, but try things. So, I'm always smoking other people's cigars because you can learn. Because if you smoke something and you think, oh, that's really good, then you try and find out what's in it, and you think, oh, if we put that with that might really work. And that's how you evolve and create new creations. I mentioned we got the Beast being launched this week. We've also got a new one, which is our 5th anniversary cigar called the Screaming Skull. So again, I wanted something. It's great, honestly, and I wanted something a bit more powerful than the Ace of Spades.
Just the name is cool as hell.
It's I know, we love it. Yeah, and Mandy's done a great job with all the imagery and all that sort of stuff. So again, we're launching that in 3 days' time. I'm so pleased with it. I can't tell you. It's a cigar for the slightly more experienced cigar smoker, maybe, but it's going to slap your taste buds around. It's awesome.
So what do you interested, like someone that I haven't smoked a lot of cigars. So when you say someone, the more experienced smoker, what do you necessarily mean by that? Like, just for people that are interested in cigars.
Well, I wouldn't smoke a Screaming Skull at 9 o'clock in the morning just after you got up, because it might knock you out for the day. But if you see, and this is the thing with cigars, everybody's taste is different, as I said earlier, right? So we have a cigar called the Paradise City, which is a mild cigar, and I love those in the morning. But I can also smoke an Ace of Spades, which is we would call that a medium to full flavored cigar, because I've been doing it a long time, and my taste buds have probably hardened up a little bit. But if you were new to cigar smoking, I wouldn't smoke a Screaming Skull. It might go the color of the green things on your hat that you're wearing. So it is probably for a slightly more experienced cigar smoker, or somebody who smokes a little bit more often. But it's bang for the flavor. But we're saying that, it's like anything, you try it. I mean, when I was in Honduras, we went to another factory to have a little look round, and they gave me one of their new blends. Now, as I say, I've been smoking cigars for nearly 40 years, and hopefully I know a little bit about what I'm doing. But this cigar was so strong. I mean, 15 minutes in, I'm starting to get the sweats. 20 minutes in, I've had to make my excuses and put the cigar down and go to the bathroom and splash cold water on my face, because it was really strong. And so that sort of cigar is not for me. I mean, it's meant to be a pleasurable thing. If it's going to make you feel ill, then there's no point. But loads of people like that as well. So again, it's each to their own.
Yeah, I mean, even once when I actually started like sharing pictures of cigars, I had one guy who reached out, and he'd invited me to like his channel, and then obviously started following some of his stuff. And like, what I found really, like, even the way some people explain the blends and like what they, whether it be on a morning or whether it be on an evening, or whether it be with a glass of brandy, and like I think, and even down to the boxes on some of these, like, you can see how people just want to collect the boxes, let alone anything else.
Yeah. But again, you see, I mean, the people who do those reviews and everything are really important, because their palate's way more refined than mine. I mean, I watch them review some of my cigars sometimes, and they're telling me what they can taste, and I'm sat there smoking the same cigar thinking, I can't taste any of that. And that's also why it's called Rebellion, because for me, it doesn't matter what somebody else tastes, it's what you taste. You'll get something different out of a cigar than I will, because your taste buds are different, and depending on the time of day, and depending on what you've had to eat and what you've had to drink and all that sort of stuff as well. If you've just had a curry and you try and smoke a mild cigar, all you're going to taste is the curry, because the cigar won't cut through. But if you just had a curry and then you get a more powerful cigar, you'll get a totally different taste than if you're sat like I am now with a glass of water smoking a cigar. So it changes all the time, and that's the joy of doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, I always say when I speak to people on the podcast, I kind of say, like, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about. If you believe in what you're trying to do, which obviously you do, obviously, like, you're driven from simply making, and then obviously giving the best value and the best blends that you can, like, and you believe in what you're doing, so you have nothing to worry about. You're not necessarily competing with the other companies, because, like, that it's for you and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean to say you don't still get a bit nervous. So I went to Germany about 6 weeks ago. So we've got a new distributor in Germany, and he said, would you come over and tour around a load of shops with me? Absolutely. And every single one, the owner wants to smoke a cigar, and you've always got this, oh, I hope he likes it sort of moment, because I like it, doesn't mean to say he's going to like it. And luckily they all like what they smoke, and they've all ordered, and it's really starting to boom in Germany now. So yeah.
So obviously, where would you say that your your biggest demand is across, like, you know, where you're sold to?
Actually, the feedback from Germany, which is only 2 months in, is huge. I mean, that's the biggest cigar market in Europe. So to kind of get into that market, it's been great. We have a big presence in Estonia. We've just launched in Sweden. They arrived there, I think, this week. So they'll be launching in Sweden. The UK, as I say, is going from strength to strength. I mean, it's really pleasing to see, and it's amazing how month on month that the sales of our stuff is growing. America is a tough market to crack because in America, and that's the biggest cigar market in the world, but in America, you've got an awful lot of brands over here. A lot of them are based over here. An awful lot of really good boutique brands. So the competition is much stiffer over here, and the entry into the US market's pretty easy. I mean, frankly, anybody can pick up the phone, partner with a factory in Nicaragua or Honduras, spend $3,000 or $4,000 and have their own brand ready to go. It's doing the hard yards, and it's constantly doing the hard yards to actually make a presence in this country.
Yeah, it's like what you said. Obviously, like jumping on an aeroplane, traveling to anywhere around the world, like taking to actually meet people, and I think like listening to what you're saying is like this type of mindset is starting to, unfortunately, is disappearing. Like people have this great idea, but they're not prepared to put the footwork in. You know, like what you're doing. Do you know what I mean?
If you're not prepared to put the hours in, and I mean like big hours, you forget it. You know, if you think you can just open up a website, particularly in the cigar business where you can't advertise and everything, but if you think you're just going to open a website, sit back with your feet up, and the orders will come flooding in, you're sadly mistaken. You've really got to work at it, and you've got to be on things like this all the time. You've got to be talking about it. You've got to be on the forums. You've got to talk to people. You know, when we first started, and I'd like to give these people a mention. We had a guy called Des Hammond, who runs a podcast called The Cigar Cabin. And he was so helpful because he would showcase our cigars, and again, his taste buds are way better than mine. He would do these great reviews on the cigars, and from that, other people then smoke them. Other reviewers look at them, and that's how you get the snowball effect. But it's constant work. It is not a little 2 hours a week part-time job. If you're going to try and succeed doing that, forget it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, obviously, is it the health? Is it, in the UK? Is it the health law, like the laws when obviously banning advertising? Is it like, is that all the thing over there that's what's stopping you from like advertising, like an alcohol company would on?
Yeah, well, you cannot advertise in the UK. They banned tobacco advertising, I don't know, 20 odd years ago, and like you can't smoke inside in the UK. So some of the cigar shops have got around that by calling their inside spaces sampling lounges. So there's a bit of a quirk in the law that says, look, if you're going to walk into a cigar shop and spend 500 quid on a box of cigars, you're going to want to taste one first to make sure it's okay. So you can sample a cigar before you buy a box. But in the UK, absolutely no advertising. And you've got to be really careful on even the social media stuff that you're not pushing a sale. It's about lifestyle. So you're okay on Facebook and Instagram and all those things. If you are putting pictures of cigars because it's a lifestyle thing, that's okay. But if I went on Instagram and said, "Oh, buy my cigars, they're only XYZ," then I'd get blocked within seconds, and I'd have difficulty getting back on there. So you have got to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, it's interesting you say that, because like this is like, so obviously I'm currently just like, it started off as a hobby for me, like interviewing bike builders, tattooists, and documenting some of the stuff I do, and then it very quickly thought, you know what, I can possibly turn this into a business. And literally one of the biggest reasons had a website built and a platform built that once it's up and running is a platform for like-minded people to use. It's like I was getting pissed off with kind of being under the restraint of Meta, i.e. Facebook, Instagram, and all their political bullshit. Like,
Yep.
I literally sat there one day, and I know it sounds crazy, but like, the thought popped in my head. I was like, what is Facebook and Instagram? And it was like, well, it's literally a website that people go on just for whatever reason, and they sell advertising. And I figured, well, hang on a minute. Well, if they can do it, then why can't I develop a niche related platform for bike builders, tattooists, cigar enthusiasts, you know, and that's kind of the journey I'm on, really.
Well, this is the thing. So for me, I think it's completely wrong that Facebook and Insta do this. You know, as long as you've got controls in place so that, you know, somebody who's 16 doesn't go on and think, oh, I've seen cigars, I want to go and smoke them. We're all adults, right? And you should better do what you want. So therefore, look, if they're trying to restrict it, I think that's a restriction on your freedom of speech. As long as you don't hurt anybody or harm anybody, then you should be able to do and say what you want, and the viewer decides whether they want to watch it or not. That's my view. But unfortunately, as you say, you know, they're big tech now, and you know, they have their rules and regulations. I mean, it's like some of the payment providers; they won't touch tobacconists because, you know, we're a tobacconist, for fuck's sake. I mean, you know, kids at school are not buying handmade cigars and going behind the bike sheds and smoking a 20 quid cigar. So I think they've got it wrong.
Right.
You know, it's like the government now in the UK, that they've got this bill, this smoking bill going through, where they're going to ban anybody who's currently 16. I think it's this year it's coming in, currently 16, from ever being legally allowed to smoke. And my view is, who the fuck are you to tell me what I can and can't do in the safety of my own home? You can't, and you know, I think it's wrong.
It's crazy. Like it's so cool to hear this, because like, even though like obviously we're doing two different things, but we're still part of like this. It's like your mindset is like mine. It's like I just won't have. I mean, I had an incident where my youngest son was off school, and I had to speak to him on the phone. And as soon as they mentioned governing bodies, I was like, look, my missus is like, literally, she's like, don't you dare. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck what the governing bodies are saying. And because I just won't have it. I won't have somebody fucking threatening me. Like, I'm just like, no, like, you know, because also, again, going back to what I said earlier, it's like, I had nothing to hide. So I got nothing to worry about. I mean, my son is asthmatic, and if they could have been bothered just to look through the periods of time that he was off through the previous year, they wouldn't even had to ring me. It was the same time of year. Colds are coming. His breathing problems were about. It's like I don't have to fucking explain myself. You know, and that's the society we're living in.
Me and my wife were called up to the school I don't know how many times over our kids, because we always encourage them, look, you know, you need to go to school, you need to learn, get an education. I think it's important, you've got to get an education, but be your own person. So I can't remember whether it was my eldest daughter or my youngest daughter dyed her head dark red, right? It wasn't blue or pink or anything like that, it's just dark red. And all of a sudden we get a phone call from the school, we're suspending them because they've dyed their hair. Fuck off. What's that got to do with whether they can, you know, listen in class and do well just because they've got a piercing or a hair color? I mean, please.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting. Like, to go back to like smoking laws. Like, I was living in Spain when Spain first introduced the smoking law, and my parents ran a bar there, and it was a hefty fine if you had punters in there smoking. But it worked out cheaper for the bar to pay the fine, because the money they were losing, where the locals and obviously Brits that lived there would literally kicking up a stink. So literally they ended up revoking the smoking law for another couple of years. But it just shows you that if we all get together and like stand for what we believe in, like, we can at least slow them down, you know.
But this is the problem, right? So if you wanted to open up a smoking lounge in the UK, right, who's going to go there? People that are going to go there are people who smoke. So why should somebody tell you can't do that? But no, they say, we're going to ban it. You can't do it. If I want to go and smoke somewhere, I'm going to go smoke somewhere. And that is one of the appeals of the US at the moment. I mean, they have some real cool smoking lounges. I mean, you know, they're playing rock music. They're having a whale of a time in these places. Some are drinking alcohol, some aren't drinking alcohol, but it's kind of a place where like-minded people can go. But you're only going to go there to smoke a cigar. So what's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy because like I'm not a drinker, and yet it's crazy how they keep advertising alcohol, and alcohol is ruining people's lives. Like, it's ruining the drinker, it's ruining the family, it's killing people, are dying through drink driving. And it's like, I mean, my beliefs are the House of Parliament half year. That's why I believe they'll continue to allow drink. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't because you think like Winston Churchill, like how many cigars are named after Winston? You know, it's like, you know, it's crazy.
It's just about freedom for me, you know, freedom of choice.
Yeah, that's it. I think like you say, it's standing for what you believe in, building a brand around it, and just obviously letting people enjoy it. And so obviously for people in the UK, obviously, is it just your website they can get it from, or is there any or any stores that they can purchase them?
No, we have some really good retailers. One of our biggest retailers is a guy you'd really like if you met him, a guy called Tony Duke. He runs a shop in Southsea called Headcase Cigars. He's a big biker. He's just had a custom,
That's cool.
I think it's a custom Harley made called Mistress. And he's a great guy, and we get on with him really well. And he sells lots of. He's the biggest retailer of our cigars in the UK, and he's just been awarded as a Habanos specialist. So he's passed all the exams and everything. So he's now allowed to sell Cuban cigars. Bless them.
All right. So basically, when it comes to a random person like myself coming in and asking about cigars, he's been able to prove that he knows what he's talking about within blends.
Yes.
And is that what you mean by that?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
That's cool.
The Cuban guys are very protective over, you know, and again, this is what we're rebelling against. You know, smoke a cigar, try it. If you like it, smoke another one. Yes, it's nice if somebody can tell you a little bit about it. But there's a lot of people out there who think they know about stuff who don't. But, you know, he has passed all the exams, but he knows his stuff. He knows way more about cigars than I do.
So, because like when I first came across because obviously that's one good thing about social media is obviously once you start like liking pictures of cigars and following cigar connoisseurs, obviously the algorithm dishes out more, and like you're the first British band that I've come across. Like, it doesn't seem to be that there are not. I mean, obviously, again, I'm not educated on cigars. Obviously, you know, I haven't claimed to know what I'm talking about, but there doesn't seem to be many British companies out there.
There aren't. I'm not aware of anybody else in the UK that actually makes their own cigars, or a UK-based business that does their own cigars. So there's lots of distributors. There'll be about, I don't know, 30 or 40 retailers, mainly in the big cities in the UK, but none that I know of that just purely do their own cigars. So that's why in the logo we put the Union Jack either side of it, because we're really proud. That
yeah, I noticed it ghosted in the back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed it like ghosted into the back of the wall, which I thought was really cool.
Mm.
So what's is it raining there?
Do you know, a storm has just started. Yeah, come to Florida to see the weather, and it's just absolutely. It's stopping now. It just started chucking it down. I'm under a cover, and I've got another screen over here, and it was starting to blow in. I'm thinking if this carries on, I might have to move, but I'm all right now. It's stopped.
I literally thinking, I saw some things behind you flapping around, and it sounds
Yeah, well, that's
rain.
the reflection in the window.
You've still got blue sky, no clouds, blue sky.
Well, it is now starting to brighten up. The blue, I can see blue sky in the distance. So yeah, just a quick sharp shower freshens it up.
Oh, that's so. So obviously, apart from the release of your two new blends coming out in the next 3 days at the expo, what else has Rebellion Cigars got in hand for the future? What are we seeing? Like, are you to get more distributors, or are you looking to have your own shop? Is there some things you can talk about or whatever? And
yeah, we wouldn't get our own physical shop. I mean, there's lots of people that do that and do it very well. So we focus on the website. We'll be bringing other new cigars into the UK. Again, not just ours. Again, we're trying to do that all the time and introduce people to new flavor profiles, new brands, that sort of thing. In terms of what we do, so as I say, we've got this big exhibition in 3 days' time. Week after that, I'm off up to Chicago. There's a big consumer event up in Chicago, so I'm up there for 4 days. And again, that came about because I did something like this with some great people in the US, and they put me in contact with somebody else, and they I sent them some cigars. They love the cigars. They like what we were saying. They said, "Oh, you must come to, show your cigars at this show in Chicago." So we're doing that, and really it's about just doing events now. So we have 4 or 5 events in the US later on in the year primarily, but it's just like I said before, it's the hard yards now. It's doing stuff like this, it's talking to people, it's getting out there and introducing them to the wonderful world of cigar smoking, and yeah, hopefully they like them.
And that's it. Like you say, it's obviously trying to. So I guess in America, are you actually allowed to advertise cigars like on the television and things like that, or is it not? Is that a no-go as well?
Not on the television, but there are specialist cigar magazines that you can advertise in. So it's a lot
right.
freer here. I mean, and because it's the biggest market in the world, you do have a really good trade association that we're part of, and they fight. It's a $600-700 million business over here, so they fight for the right to smoke cigars. And so every different state has its own laws and different regulations. I think the government tried to not ban smoking, but really restrict it, and they've managed to argue that premium cigars, handmade cigars, are totally different to cigarettes. It's a totally different bag, and they've successfully argued that. So that's kind of gone away a bit for a while, but you've got to keep on it. Governments do what governments do. And so the man on the street's got to keep fighting against it and fighting their corner and arguing. And that takes time. It costs money. But if you want to protect your business, you've got to do that. As I say, this thing in the UK with this whole smoking ban, they're trying to get premium cigars exempted from that at the moment. They're still included in this whole thing. But you've got to keep fighting. You can't give in.
It's crazy because even somebody from the outside, it's like, first of all, I mean, being sports, it's such a shame because the era of the Marlboro cigars, the Benson and Edges on the cars and the bikes, I think it was the best time of color schemes on in motorsports ever. That for somebody as a motorsport fanatic, it's such a shame. And then, well, you've got multi-million-pound industry, simply Formula One alone, let alone motorbike racing. Yeah. The money that's being lost, it's it doesn't make any sense because it's like you said, it's a massive industry.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, so they banned the whole smoking advertising 20 odd years ago, and I used to watch the snooker, the Benson and Hedges Master, and all that sort of stuff, and all the snooker players would be smoking between taking their shots and that sort of thing. So I kind of get it, but I think there's been a resurgence. So if you think on the TV, maybe 10-15 years ago, you rarely saw people smoking apart from maybe Doc Cotton on EastEnders, but you see more and more people in films smoking now. You don't see a Sly Stallone film without him a big cigar in his mouth. So I think that's kind of making a comeback because it is it's an image, and it is cool, and it's the, although lots of women smoke cigars, and more women smoke cigars actually, and that's good to see. There is still that kind of thing about,
definitely,
it's a cool man thing, but it's not. You go to the cigar bars over here, and it's probably 30% women, 70% men. So it's definitely on the up, I think. And I think we see this in the UK.
I mean, I can't.
So we see our customer base on our website getting younger, and I think the younger adults are rebelling and saying, "You're not going to tell me what to do." And actually, I quite enjoy this. I might only smoke once a month or once a week, but I look forward to that Saturday night when it's just me and a cigar, and I'm watching the football or watching a film or whatever you're doing, and we're seeing the age of our customer, mid-30s, really starting to get into this now.
Yeah, I mean, even my nephew, he's 19. I mean, he'd been to a cigar shop in Leeds, and he bought 2 cigars. I think he'd spent about 100. I think he'd spent about 120 £120 or something, like £60 a cigar. And he was obviously at his dad's wedding, and he stood there with a cigar outside the pub. And he just I looked over him. I was like, because obviously I've known him like most of his life. I'm like what a cool little dude, like in his suit, outside. I was like, fucking hell, go on, mate.
We get loads of that. We get people phoning us up saying, "Well, I'm going to a wedding at the weekend. I'm the best man. I want 20 cigars because we're all going to have a cigar after the wedding." That happens a lot now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good because it's like that. I remember when my stepbrother, his first child was born. Like my dad, we were still living in Spain. My dad obviously went out and bought this massive cigar. Sat, I'm only like 12 years old, thinking like, well, why are you smoking this cigar, Dad? And he was like, no, it's like a celebration. It's like it's like you say, cigars are a big part of.
All the major things that have happened to me in my life have been celebrated with a cigar at one stage or another. And again, when my eldest daughter was born, which is 30 years ago, we went down to the pub, and we had beer, and we lit some cigars up, and this group of parrots came over and said, "Oh, what are you doing with the cigars?" "I've just had my first baby daughter." Fantastic. And it's a big celebratory thing.
That's it, innit? Like you say, and that's the way it should be, because obviously you say you're not smoking a cigar just for you're not jumping in the car and spark a cigar up on your way type of thing. It's like, obviously if you've got a long journey you might do, but it's and I think it is important today because everything consumed, and like old-fashioned things and not like simply enjoying things are disappearing. Like it's like you said, and it's obviously it's good to see that younger people are appreciating finer things, because it's important because of the way the world's going, I think.
Well, I read all the time that kids aren't drinking as much now because they're getting a bit more health conscious, and that's not a bad thing at all. But as I say, if we look at the demographic of our customers, I think you get to about 30 and you think, right, I've had enough of this. I want to do something for me now, and that's when they sit in the garden with their mates and have a cigar, or there's an awful lot of online forums where they'll have what they call a hearth. And 5, 10, 15, 20 people will get onto this hearth and then all smoke a cigar each and just talk shit for an hour, 2 hours. And it's a really big community thing. And you can be anywhere in the world and do that. It doesn't have to necessarily be just people in your own country. A lot of them spread the globe. And you're meeting people from all different walks of life and getting different viewpoints and that sort of stuff. And it's kind of, instead of going to the pub, so you're doing it online with a cigar. Now, I would rather sit with somebody and smoke a cigar, but that's just my personal. I'm a bit older.
Well, that's like even down to the way I've done my podcast. So I did episodes in 7 months, and then what I did is I took a step back, and with season 2, I decided I try to sit down with as many people. So I travel I travel as much as I can. Like obviously currently only within the UK, but like the idea of, like taking it back to like interacting down on a sofa, cup of coffee, chatting about bikes, whatever. And it's like, it is obviously it's disappearing, unfortunately.
It is, but I actually think it's starting to come back. I do, and again, you're doing stuff like this. Does anybody else do it? I don't know, but you'll get your market because other people want to get involved, and they've got no other outlet to do it. So particularly now where people are just sat in front of the telly and it's just on social media all the time, they want something else. They want something a bit different instead of just being fed the same old rubbish all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we've pretty much covered like where it all started, and obviously like we look forward to seeing the Beast blend release. So when's it actually officially getting released to the public?
So it gets released at PCA on this Friday. And then they'll be in the UK sometime towards the end of May. So that's when we will be releasing them in May. So keep an eye on the website. It will obviously, and on Instagram and all the other social stuff. This is something that's quite good as well. So, I avoided social media most of my life, and it's when we started doing this. This is the only forum we have to get out to people, and I'm a bit of an old Luddite, when it comes to this sort of stuff. And, we hit on something about a year ago. My eldest daughter and my youngest daughter's future husband said, well, we're quite good at the old social media stuff. Why don't we do all the marketing for you? Done. So everything you see on any of the socials now and they're way better at it than I am. And they do a great job. So it's kind of become a bit of a family business now. So everybody's kind of involved. We're in the States at the moment, so the shop is being manned by my future son-in-law and my youngest daughter. So they're doing all the picking and the packing of the cigars in the UK. So everybody in the family is kind of involved, which is great.
Oh yeah, that's it. And it's like even down with what I'm doing. Like I was talking to my son last night, and it's the idea is once he turns 14, I can legally employ him, and
right.
I want to get him like learning how to do stuff and like editing and things like that. But it's important because obviously people say don't mix family with business, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, really, why wouldn't you introduce the family first?
Yeah, and you just keep it a bit of fun, So this is the good thing. I mean, I can create a video, but it might take me all day, right? And Alex and Michaela will do this in 5 minutes, so we can get a lot more great content in a much shorter space of time. And I think if you can get your family involved, it's brilliant, and you're getting to spend time with your son if you're doing that, and it's good quality time. So there's no downside to it for me. They just got to remember who's boss sometimes.
Yeah, question your authorities. I get that all the time.
Yeah.
So I had last year. I took him to a custom show with me, and he kept saying, because obviously I'm meeting new people and obviously talking to people, and they're like, he says, oh, Dad, he says, I've heard this story about 1,000 times this weekend. I'm like, well, that's the way it is, so He's like, yeah, but it's boring now.
Yeah, well, their attention span tends to be a little bit shorter than ours, I think. But
yeah, definitely. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we come to a close on this?
No, I think it's done. I only to say thank you very much for having me on. It's been brilliant. I really appreciate you giving us this support and giving us the opportunity. It's very good of you.
No, mate. I mean, for me, it's obviously like this fascination with cigars. Anyway, not being someone that really knows what, so I don't even try to, and also obviously having an English company that's doing it in the UK, which like again from the outside, like you said, there doesn't seem to be anyone else in the UK doing it, and I think really kind of like unknowingly, like we're on the same same outlook, like kind of like against. I thought, how cool is it? Like the UK of everything, and like along comes yourself, like, and your wife that are like, no, we're gonna do this. Stressful and the red tape, that, like, I think we need more people that kind of want to do this, like maybe not so much cigars, but want to do something that the government and the system don't want them doing.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, there's so much fun in doing that, I'll tell you.
Definitely. So I'm gonna hit the end stream button, mate, and I'll just have a chat with you before we get off.
Brilliant.